Good morning. Happy Saturday. I hope you're well this morning. And we're still thinking about this topic of giving. And we are now in chapter 9 of 2 Corinthians. And Paul has said in the opening 5 verses that he is planning to send some of his company ahead of him to them, so that the people in Corinth could have the chance to get their financial gift ready, so that Paul would not be embarrassed when he got there and found that they hadn't put the gift together. This was a gift they had promised over a year previously, and Paul had been boasting about them and saying how generous they were and what a wonderful fellowship of believers they were, and the money hadn't appeared. And he didn't want there to be a conflict when he got there in person. So he was sending people ahead of himself to exact the gift. But the letter would have gone ahead to urge them to put aside the money they'd promised. And he says at the end of it, and arrange in advance for this gift you have promised, not something extra, but what they had promised, so that it may be ready not as an exaction, but as a willing gift. Our giving needs to be willing. It's a free will offering, not something we feel we have to do to comply with some rule or regulation about how much we give. There are rules and regulations, and if we abide by it, we're following rules. But the thing about a free will offering, it's a reflection to me of our whole service of God. Everything we do for God, we could do because we feel we must do it. We could do it because we feel obliged. You know, if I'm a Christian, I ought to do this, or I ought to do that, or I ought to behave in this way. But God has given us freedom, and we need to get ourselves to the place where the things we do for God are done freely and willingly. There's something we desire. They come from a desire in our hearts to be like God, a desire to please Him, not a desire to fulfill a list of rules and regulations. A willing gift, a free will offering, if you like. And he goes back in verse 6 to the point I made a couple of days ago. The point is this, he says, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must do as he has made up his mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. We know that phrase very well, don't we? God loves a cheerful giver. And if you, when you give, do not give cheerfully, that is something to really seriously address in your inner life, in your faith walk. What makes you unwilling to give freely, cheerfully? This is not about the amount you give. This is about how you give. The verse before it, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, is saying that the more you give, the more generously you give, the more you're going to reap back. God is no man's debtor. He gives and gives and gives again. And if you give just the loose change, in your purse every time you go to church, or that's not giving, really. That's giving a tip. If you just take the spare money out of your purse when you go to church, or out of your wallet, and put it in the collection, it's giving God a tip. No, what we need to do as believers is to look at our financial income, whatever that is, in the same way as we look at every other aspect of our life. This is the Lord's. The Lord has given this to me. My income is sourced by God. He has given me the ability to do the job I do. He's given me the calling to do what I'm doing. He has blessed me with this money. It is his money. How much of this does he want me to give him? Where does he want me to give it? Where should it go? I think if you want a measure, the Old Testament tithing is a good first step to regard. I've done it all my life, to regard the first 10% of my income as the Lord's. It's how Terry and I have always, I had this principle from years ago. There was a basic 10%, so every month the income to our account is totted up and 10% is given away. But after that, we give when the Lord prompts us to give, and it is frequent. I won't go into it in any more detail. We give, and we give, and we give. We don't hold the money that comes into you tightly. And, to us, the tithe is as essential a part of our outgoings as our community tax, our local council tax, our utility bills, our grocery bills. It's as essential as that. We are blessed we don't have a mortgage anymore. But in the days when I had a mortgage or rent to pay, it was the top of the list was the tithe. It's so much so I did get looked at very strangely when I was looking for a mortgage years ago when I worked in a hospital in South London, and the hospital became a trust, and it sold all its off-site properties which it had, which different members of the staff lived in. And there was a hospital house that was allotted to the chaplain. So I had a house, but then that house was sold by the trust, and I had to find my own place to live. And when I went to the bank and they asked, they sit down with you and they ask you your outgoings. Very embarrassing. We have to be honest about it, and you're honest about it. And I told them, 10% of my income goes to the Lord. And they didn't want to count it as part of my regular outgoings, because it reduced the amount that they could work out my mortgage on. And I said, but whether you count it or not, it's not there. You can't base my mortgage on that, because that is not mine. It's not mine. But then above that, we give. So the point is, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. He who sows bountifully will reap bountifully. But it's all about the heart. It's all about the heart. I'm going to talk some more about this tomorrow. It's all about the heart. Because if you give generously with reluctance, you won't reap. You won't reap the plenty, the bountiful, because it's linked to our heart. Jesus told us all the time, didn't he? The Sermon on the Mount is full of, you say this, but I say, if you do in your heart. It's what happens in your heart that matters. Get your heart sorted out with regard to finance, and we'll think again tomorrow. God bless you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.